Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I'm your host, Peter Van Rijsdam, and I am joined by a lot of people today, so many that we don't even all fit on the same screen, so let's go ahead and look at those other folks. First, we have Don Pizzette. Don, how you doing?
I am doing great. A lot of cool stuff going on this week, and definitely excited about having a record-setting, what do we have, 5 people on the podcast simultaneously?
At least, so far. It could go up.
I thought you meant viewers.
No, well, yeah. But we've got more people on camera than we do viewers.
Yeah,
It's
that's
amazing.
crazy. That's Daniel Lowry over there. Daniel, how's it going?
I'm just hoping we can get into Ripley's with that kind of numbers.
I don't think that'll do it. And then down in the corner, we have Anthony Sequeira, who is, you've been on the podcast before, and you're an IT Pro TV edutainer. How you doing, Anthony?
Doing great. This is my second time on Technado. Very excited.
Yeah, we like to space those out about every 2 years.
And he hasn't
Correct.
mentioned disco balls yet. So.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes. After my references to the human genitalia, I had a waiting period of 14 months.
Speaking of records, Daniel, this could be the record for how quick into the show I have to mark the not safe for kids button on YouTube. So thank you, Anthony, for that. And we are also joined by a good friend of Anthony's, and that's why Anthony came on as well. Anthony's friend is Jason Gooley, who is a technical evangelist at Cisco. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on.
Now, how do you have time for this with 2 CCIEs? It seems like that would take up all of your time.
Yeah, see, it took up most of my life and most of my hair as well,
Ah.
as Anthony could attest to. It was a rough patch to get that. See, we
That's it. Yeah, it was a full afro.
we're in the
before-
club together.
I know the hurt.
before you went
Hair
to-
club for men.
Well, we've got a lot to get into today, and we're going to go ahead and start a little bit different today. We're going to talk about an origin story.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
This is a pretty hardcore origin story.
All right, Jason, I am told that you have a pretty hardcore origin story. I assume that Anthony created you in a lab or something like that. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started in tech and how you got to where you are today at Cisco?
Yeah, that's actually, it's a pretty interesting story. So when I was really young, I was 13 years old, believe it or not. And a good friend of mine, his mom was a computer analyst, and he would steal her books and teach himself DOS and Windows 3.1. And he calls me up one day. He said, "You have to come over and learn this stuff and check it out." And I was like, all right, well, whatever. Okay. So I go over there, and he starts showing me how to create folders and delete files and stuff in DOS. And I think back then it was DOS 622. And then he's like, "Well, check this thing out. It's Windows 3.1 and then Windows 3.1.1 for work groups." And we're clicking on things. And the most entertaining thing I think we did was we programmed a circle in QBasic. And there was an old application, and I don't know if anybody remembers this, but it was called Wicked Windows. And you would put this application on, and you could throw like daggers and cats out of a catapult at the screen and all this weird stuff. And at a 13, 14-year-old age, I mean, that was the best thing to do when you have all that time on your hands. And it was interesting as I kept going with it. I started learning Novell, and we were learning Novell 3 from his mom at the time. And we just really loved it so much. And I remember that I had this go-kart that I was trying to get running, and I couldn't get the thing to run very well. And his mom's boyfriend at the time did small engine repair. And she'd come to me one day and she said, "Hey, I know you've taken a liking to doing computers and you have a big interest in it. How about if you give my boyfriend that go-kart, I will give you a brand new computer." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Well, what the heck, man? It doesn't run anyway." A couple expletives in there that I said, right? I'm like, "Yeah, it doesn't run anyway." So I did that, and I got my first computer, which was an AST 386 SX16 with 4 meg of onboard RAM and a 20 megabyte Seagate hard drive. Talk about old school.
Nice.
So that was
life
my
there.
first. That was my first computer.
Yeah, so hold on.
So-
I need to ask here. Was that friend Anthony then? Is that where he comes in?
No.
Was there a turbo button on your computer?
There was not a turbo button. There was just a big toggle to turn it off and on, and that was about it. I don't even think it had a reset button. But it did have a key where you could lock it, where it was you couldn't turn it on and off, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, so I started with that, and I kind of stayed in it. And I remember it was 1997, and I heard of this thing called Cisco. And I was going to school at this vocational school to try to learn, just networking in general. So I went and I got my Microsoft Mouse certification for Office applications and got my A+ certification. And, I heard of this thing called Cisco. So I figured, well, what the heck, I'll start dabbling in that a little bit. And I was finishing up my CNA and 411B and Novell. And I started dabbling in Cisco. And back then, when you're trying to buy equipment, eBay was just fairly new. And I think my dad spent, I should say, I borrowed like $5,000 from my dad to buy, you're all going to fall over. I think it was two 2501 routers with 60-pin serial connections between the two, a CSU, DSU, and it was like a 1924 switch by Cisco. And I think that was $5,000.
Man, those 2500s were tanks. If you still have them, they probably still run.
They still do, yeah. I think they're iOS 10. It was so old school. It was amazing. So I started playing with it and learning. I ended up getting my CCNA in 98. I think I got my NP in 01. And then I said, one day I'm going to get my CCIE and I'm going to go work at Cisco. And it took quite a long time. But in 2013, I ended up actually getting my CCIE and I think I passed, was March 29th, which yesterday was 8 years for me. So March 29th. In 2013, and then by July 8th, I was working at Cisco. And then in between that, I went to my very first Cisco Live where me and Anthony were tearing it up and having a good time with a bunch of close friends. And and that was it. I ended up coming to Cisco. I was an SC, and then I had a group of accounts. And then as it fast forwarded a little bit on, I started focusing more on some of the higher level routing and switching things for some of our customers and EN as a whole. And then I became one of the global IWAN adoption folks for Cisco when IWAN first came out, the very first SD-WAN. And then I just kept going with it. And now I work for the worldwide EN sales team, or formerly known as sales team. And I'm a technical evangelist. So I get to talk to a lot of customers. My main job now is building training content and enablement for the field and our partners, doing videos and voiceovers and all that other good stuff. So
is nobody allowed to say sales anymore? Nobody works in sales.
Yeah, I mean, it is for sales. Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to try to sell stuff as much as possible. Plug. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's cool because I don't have to worry about a quota. I don't have to worry about anybody kind of, harping on to me about, numbers and sales and all of this good stuff. So it's kind of neat. I get to just be myself and they love it. So it works out.
So you mentioned Cisco Live, kind of where you and Anthony first started hanging out, and that's actually going on right now, but a little different than what's happening or back in 2013, I guess. So what's going on with Cisco Live right now?
Yeah, so this is the first ever all digital Cisco Live Global is what it's called. So we're running Cisco Live sessions all across the world at different time slots and zones, so everyone can participate. And I mean, some of the guests, I mean, even though it's virtual, some of the guests that we have coming on are second to none. I mean, James Cameron, Serena Williams. I mean, it's pretty impressive to see the folks that come together to put on a good show. And shout out to Alex Appies and team for everybody who doesn't know her. She is pretty much in charge of running all these events. And again, one of the most amazing people you've ever met. But yeah, so all digital. The celebration will be fun. I think we have Train. Was it BB Rexa, a whole bunch of different bands coming in, the Killers. So keep an eye out for that. It's going on for the next couple days. And then into next week, there'll be some Cisco Press Meet the Authors and a couple other events as part of the World Solutions as well.
So they'll just like come to your house, Train, or do they? It's like a
they just show up, and then they came out and said, "Hey, what's up, man?" I said, "Oh, no." Is in my house as you all are now. I guess.
Okay. Anthony, are you doing okay without 2 years of Cisco Live in a row?
I tell you, my liver is very thankful.
Yeah, you look younger. You're like a better color than I've seen on you.
Yeah, exactly. And, I just wanted to point out that Jason Gooley is the reason why I'm never competitive with my friends in my career. So, I provide him some tips on obtaining the CCIE. He then goes and gets 2 of them. He calls me up because he knows I'm a Cisco Press author. He asks for some tips on writing Cisco Press books, and now his books crush my own sales. So I wanted to be on here to, basically try and undermine Jason in any way I possibly can.
You're doing a horrible job so far. All you're doing is touting, why he's so great.
At
Yeah,
least better than
exactly.
you.
Yeah, that's true. It's a low bar.
I do have to say though, those tips saved my life, because if it wasn't for Anthony, I probably wouldn't be a CCIE. Between him and Terry Vincent, both giving me some really awesome information. And that's the thing I think that is great about this community is that, you know, everybody feels like they got there on their own volition, but the truth of the matter is somebody out there somewhere had to help you along your journey. And the fact that that whole paying it forward thing and giving back is huge for me. And I wouldn't even be on this thing if it wasn't for Anthony. So mad props and virtual hug. I love you, man. And thank you so much for everything you've done to me and for me, or for and done.
Well, I don't know if you'd put an appearance on Technado on your resume. Like,
Yeah, just wait till the episode's over to decide. Yeah, Anthony had to take his off of this LinkedIn after last time. Well, while we've got you here, Jason, let's go ahead and find out what grinds your gears in our next segment.
It's so interesting that you bring that up.
Oh, hold on. I'm playing the intro.
You know what really grinds my gears? You, America.
We now go to Peter for You Know What Really Grinds My Gears.
All right. So as you were saying there, what grinds your gears is the lack of inclusion of women in tech, and as we talked yesterday, Jason, I think there's no better than the five of us white guys to talk about this and why this is important. So why does this make you so angry, Jason?
Yeah, and it's funny. It's, you know, it does start with us being the ambassadors of change for sure. I mean, I think, you know, having a 6-year-old daughter is one thing that has changed my perspective on a lot of different things, and that I want her to have the opportunity to do anything that is that she wants to be able to do. And, you know, we're doing all these different cool projects together, and we're doing STEM projects, and we're doing science projects. We're building crystals and growing different things in water and making volcanoes. And she has this little scientist coat, and she comes out, she's like, Daddy, do you want to do science stuff with me? And it makes my heart just glow. Absolutely, I want to do stuff like that. And one of the things that I think the reason this grinds my gears so much is, you know, we need to get to the girls before they start making the decision of what they want to be when they grow up, because a lot of this stuff is being told to them as far as, oh, well, we expect you to be a waitress, or we expect you to do whatever typical, you know, stereotype that is injected by typically most men. And it's something that I'm trying to figure out how to break that norm. And I think not only does it start at home with us encouraging our kids and teaching them to, you know, shoot for the moon for anything that they want to do or be when they grow up, but I mean, at the same time, it also comes from the rest of us in the industry who have already gotten there, who want to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to be something. And I have so many folks reach out to me. I have a lot of women reach out to me, and a lot of men who also reach out to me on LinkedIn and Twitter and ask me questions about how they can get into the field, and you know, what are some of my thoughts on these different aspects. And I think when you really boil it down, is that everybody should have the opportunity to do everything that is possible, right? I mean, it shouldn't be far-fetched for a woman to be a CCIE. I know many of them, and pretty much all of them are smarter than me and have succeeded well beyond my means. And that's the thing. I think as long as we can find a way to be open enough to let everybody be at the table, I think it's the way we need to start moving in the future. And that doesn't just go for women. It goes for a lot of things that are going on in the society right now. And I think the more inclusive we can be, the better we're all going to be in the long run.
Now, Jason, I know you're involved in a number of like diversity projects at Cisco. So can you give us some examples of some of the things you guys are working on?
Yeah. So one of these projects that we worked on was literally a project to drive more girls and women into technology, as well as to build a pipeline of women SEs at Cisco. So that was a huge project that I was working on. It's been going on since 2019. So I've been working on it off and on for 2 years now. And out of that, one of the things we did was we wanted to figure out a way to encourage girls who are at a younger age to start looking at engineering and technology as a possible path for them. So we started creating these videos and these social media videos, and one of them that we created was called Mythbusters. And the idea there was, how do we bust myths about what it is to be an engineer and what you have to go through in your journey. So we've created this video, and it was really designed to be more of a fun and inclusive way of teaching younger women, this is something that's available to you, and it's not that difficult. You just got to show interest, and here's how you get started. And that was one of the things we did. The other thing we did was we actually also partnered with the Network which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. And what we did was we actually created a matching tool within Cisco called NetAcad Connect, where it would actually match internal Cisco employees with network academies if they want to do, some sort of instruction or teaching, or volunteer to do shadowing or mentoring, as well as mock interviews, do the sample resumes for folks who are trying to get their career started from the network academy, and as well as drive that inclusion for women and in technology, as well as programmability and things of that nature. So that was a big one that we worked on. And then the other thing that I'm working on this year now is to kind of take similar ideas to that are Cisco brand related, and kind of make them fit into that overarching message that marketing has as far as inclusion and the inclusive future for all, which is our slogan for Cisco right now. So those are two real big things I'm working on.
Now, Jason, I know you shared that video with us, so I actually want to take a second and play that. And I swear to God, if it's a Rickroll, I'm not letting you live it down. But let's go ahead and take a look at that video, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
There are many myths about engineers. Let's dispel a few of them now. All engineers look the same. Let's take a look at some. Here is an engineer. Here is another engineer. And another one. And another one. After all, engineering is a passion and a profession. Engineers have boring hobbies. All of these engineers are practicing their favourite hobbies. Engineers must be great at math. Engineering is a very broad field. There are many different kinds of engineers, including hardware, software, civil, network, environmental, and so on. You don't need to be great at math, but you do need to be excited about solving problems and creating. Many believe there are two types of people, art and literature, and science and logic. It's also believed that a person can only belong to one group. Well, that's just not true. Engineers can be dancers, musicians, artists, and enjoy many other artistic hobbies. As an engineer, a creative mind is needed to create a solution or a product that doesn't yet exist. Many creative solutions that we enjoy today were made possible by engineers. Some examples of these would be planes, 3D printing, and special effects in movies. As you can see, engineers are diverse and unique people.
All right, that was a very cool video, Jason. If people want to find out more about that program, is there a website or anything to go to, or how would they do that?
So it's interesting on the channel. I have Metal DevOps here. That's where I host that video on YouTube, and I think that we're going to start doing some more inclusion projects and videos and interviews on that. So that would be probably where to go check it out, at metaldevops.com, or on YouTube at Metal DevOps.
And that's a great segue, because I noticed when it showed the people that have hobbies, was that you on stage playing guitar there?
That was me. Okay,
so at the beginning we were like, oh wow, this guy's got 2 CCIEs, that's cool, but that's not even the coolest thing that you do. So let's talk a little bit about the foundation that you're involved with. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So it was interesting. There's a foundation called the David Ellefson Youth Music Foundation, and that David Ellefson is the bass player for a band called Megadeth, Grammy Award metal band, which is one of my favorites. And I actually met those guys back in 2017, and it was one of those things where there was like this event going on out in California at Dave Mustaine's house, and I was fortunate enough to be able to get a pass to go. And I met all these guys, and we all hit it off really well, and I stayed in touch. And fast forward up until 2020 here, Tom Hazard, which is David Ellefson's partner in a lot of his ventures, as well as David Ellefson, they wanted to do something for COVID to give back to kids who are impacted by COVID and out of school. So they came up with the idea to give lessons back via, at the time they said Skype. And I said, I work at Cisco. Let's talk about WebEx. And we were just joking around. And then I took it to a woman named Tae Yu, who is the Senior Vice President for Corporate Social Responsibility, which was the executive sponsor for the video that you just saw. And I said, I've got a random idea for you. And it might sound far-fetched, but bear with me. Imagine now major rock stars giving lessons and giving back to these kids impacted by COVID using Cisco products like WebEx. And she loved it so much. I think it was within 2.5 weeks, we had a grant for the nonprofit organization that included WebEx boards, DX80s and all these different WebEx units. And it was amazing. And then of course the WebEx platform itself. And fast forward, we're doing all these events where we're doing things like, it's called Oh Say Can You Stream, and we're doing these it's kind of like the Jerry Lewis telethon, where you're doing these telethons to raise money and awareness. And we had so many like major stars come on these things to kind of promote this event. I mean, from Alice Cooper to, we even had the soup Nazi from Seinfeld on. That's how diverse this was, right? It's interesting when you have all these different folks coming on, but they're all coming together for good. And just recently, within the last about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I became the chief technology officer for that nonprofit organization, which of course it's nonprofit, but the idea there is I'm helping set all the direction from a technology perspective for the organization, and how can we give back and make the most impact to the kids out there, not even just impacted by COVID, but in general. So kids who have low income, from all walks of life, all across the globe. We're donating instruments and lessons, and it's pretty tremendous what we're doing. And I'm very blessed to be a part of it. And it was one of those things that it kind of just came up. And one of the things that I'm also fortunate about is I'm very good at relationships and really connecting people. And I think that was one of the things that just came out of it. It was a natural connection between what happened. Started off as I started this show, and David and Tom, they endorsed it and sponsored it 2 years ago. So we've stayed in touch this whole time, and they came to me and asked me about what we can do as far as using video to give back. And it just organically took off, and here we are today. Pretty excited about it.
Yeah. So when you're talking about that show, you're talking about the Metal DevOps show?
Yeah. So Metal DevOps is my show, but again, they endorsed and sponsored it from the get-go. And that's how we just stayed in touch from when we met in 2017 all the way up until still today. And I think what's so nice about it is, this Youth Music Foundation, it's something that it uses all of my strengths, right? I mean, I'm a people person. I love getting out there in front of folks. I love training and technology, and I love metal music. So there's no doubt about that. I know Anthony knows that I love jamming on the guitar whenever I get a chance, and being able to bring all those things together to me was like a dream come true. And the fact that it's all just for good, and there's no profit, it's all to just raise awareness and help people. And I think the more we can do things like that, the more fulfilled we'll be, and the better we're going to be in the long run.
So that is at EllefsonYouthMusicFoundation.org. So definitely check that out if you want to get involved and find out how you can help, and just read some cool stuff about that. And then Metal DevOps, is that MetalDevOps.com, or what do you got there?
Yeah, MetalDevOps.com or at MetalDevOps on all social media platforms.
Very cool. Because if you want to get into DevOps and find out about how to set up a network for a concert or something, that's a great way to do it, and not have to worry about like the boring networking stuff, but pyrotechnics and neat stuff. That's what I want to do.
Does Cisco make a pyrotechnics line?
I think they do.
I'm sure they probably have something that would, in an IoT fashion, kick off some pyrotechnics.
Networked flashpots.
I know I've wanted to blow up like some of the Nexus switches.
Yeah, I've seen those where people have taken, an Ethernet cable and connected the other end to like a regular, wall outlet. So you could.
That worked out great. PoE.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. I think a USB, like a standard USB connector, will actually fit in an RJ45. So I used to get people like, it's plugged in. I do not know what the problem is.
Crazy. All right. Well, Jason, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and telling us about not just the cool stuff you're doing with Cisco, but also the foundation and the podcast. So thanks again for taking the time.
Hey, I appreciate y'all having me on. And Anthony, again, thanks for everything. And thank you all. We'll see you again out there soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk again in the future. Hey, before actually we let you go, I did want to bring up something I forgot. We want to talk about the day this comes out. This podcast episode is April 1st, and that's the same day we have a new video series that Daniel, you were involved in.
I don't know what you're talking about.
If you head over to go.itpro.tv/SHART, you can see our new course, which is Security Hack, Acknowledge, Respond, and Train, and it's all about how you can react to a SHART event, is what we're calling them. So if you have a SHART happen at the office, and you want to see how you can learn from that and move forward as a company and as an individual, I think that's something very important. Anthony, I know you've had a lot of a lot of Shart events at work as well. Is that true?
How dare you make fun of my irritable bowel syndrome?
I always wondered why you were backing out of rooms.
Yeah, well, that's what we say in the video, that a Shart, it can happen at any time. It's going to affect everyone in the office, even though you think they're not going to be able to trace it back to you. So this video series helps you, like we said, acknowledge, respond, and train. So again, you can look back, dissect the Shart, and see why it happened.
Just need
so
a little
it doesn't happen
tighter
again.
control on your security.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be all right.
Yeah, because whether it's a leak or full-blown breach, it could be an issue. So check that out. go.itpro.tv/Shart is where you can do that. And we have a sign that you can print out that says that you have a Shart-free office and how many days since your last Shart incident. So you can fill that out as well.
All for the safety.
I made it through that whole.
Anthony's always got single digits on that sign.
Where do you get a brown Sharpie is what I want.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Jason, sorry you had to listen to that part, but thanks again for taking the time with us today. But stay tuned, everybody. We're going to take a quick break and then come back with the news right after this on Technado with Don Pizzette.
This is Kevin. He's studying online for a Microsoft certification and using another online IT training service. He's also on his second pot of coffee today to stay awake. And this is Kyle. He's also studying Microsoft but using IT Pro TV. Rather than watching a boring voiceover PowerPoint, he's actually enjoying the training with two hosts in an interactive format. Both Kevin and Kyle have access to virtual labs and practice tests, but Kyle can also get help through a live chat with other IT Pro TV members and his instructors, as well as post to a Q&A forum. He can even search for exactly what he's looking for in the interactive video transcripts, all while paying less than Kevin. Oh, and Kyle can also watch in comfort via Roku app. Kevin and Kyle are both learning IT, but Kyle is enjoying the journey. Want to be more like Kyle? View the plans to start your IT Pro TV membership today.
All right, welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette. Thank you so much to Jason Gooley for joining us there and telling us all about Cisco, their cool diversity programs, the Metal DevOps,
Megadeth.
Megadeth.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
That was cool. But we do have a bunch of news to get to, and Anthony, you're able to stay on here and go through the news with us?
Sounds great.
Fantastic. Well, let's get to our first article then, which is from bell-labs.com. So this would be Bell Labs, the famous Bell Labs. Plan 9 from Bell Labs in cyberspace. That's the headline. Doesn't really tell me much. What the hell is Plan 9?
All right, so Plan 9 is an operating system from the same people who made the Unix operating system. It came out of AT&T's Bell Laboratories way back in the 1970s and 80s. Most people haven't heard of Plan 9 because it wasn't nearly as popular as Unix, and Unix came first. But Plan 9 was a neat operating system that had some different takes. Like its big thing was it was designed to be completely distributed, so it could run on one computer or it could run on 5 or 10 computers, and so it basically had like a networking model from the get-go. But also represented everything as a file, everything, IRQs, DMAs, memory addresses, processes, everything was represented as a file in the file system, so it was kind of a new way to look at things. It was treated as an experimental OS for many years. It was held under commercial license, so it really wasn't publicly available. And since then, Bell Labs has changed hands a number of times. Currently, Bell Labs is owned by Nokia, which is odd, because you think Nokia is gone, but they're still around. And so they made the decision just the other day to transition the copyrights for Plan 9, the operating system, over to the Plan 9 Foundation, which means it is now a truly free and available operating system. So we will probably see some new generations of that software as it gets revitalized and pushed out there, because it's not saddled by those old licenses anymore.
So is this is not a Linux distro, though? This is its own separate thing, completely
very different.
Separate.
So it's much more like traditional Unix than Linux is.
So are we going to be seeing like a lot of, are we going to be running Plan 9 on our laptops before?
I don't think so. So Plan 9 never really had a native GUI. So, but you may see it on servers because really, when you talk about like even Linux, when you talk about throwing it onto servers in a network environment, networking was kind of an afterthought. It was bolted on afterwards versus Plan 9 where it was there on day one. So I've dabbled around with the OS a few times over the years. I think the first time I ran it was like 1997 or so. It's been around a long time. I don't know that it'll ever really emerge as a major player. So, Anthony, have you seen Plan 9 out there anywhere?
I have not. In fact, after reading the article, I went over to the website and I clicked on the ISO and started to download it and then canceled. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not going down this rabbit hole.
Yeah. Where are you putting this? Yeah.
9 hours on an OS no one's ever heard of.
So I do like how they've named it after Plan 9 from outer space, obviously, right? Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that emerged from it, they've incorporated into other OSs. So like in Linux, if you ever browse into the /proc folder, they basically got that from Plan 9. So you go in there and you see file representations of all the processes and information about them.
That's interesting, because when you were saying that it sees everything as a file, I was like, I thought that was a Linux thing. But I guess maybe they took it from...
I mean, it was everything you could see as a file. So in Linux, it's some things. But in Plan 9, it was part of the design guide. You had to do it. Yep.
So what is Nokia's plan to ruin this? Because I know that's kind of what they...
Well,
they do.
They've already had their chance, right? So they held this license for a long period of time and done nothing with it. So
by kind of keeping it away from the people for this long is kind of what their approach is this time.
Yeah.
Oh,
they used it to make Nyan Cat run across their phone.
Gotcha. And to clarify, Bell Labs, this has nothing to do with. This is not Taco Bell's like experimental kitchen.
No, it is not. Yeah, this is a tie back to the way back AT&T Ma Bell days.
Right. Yeah. That one. Okay.
Lucent Technologies. You remember? Lucent was Bell Labs after the breakup, and it's a whole story.
If you like nerd history.
Yeah.
And I do. All right. Our next article comes to us from ZDNet.com. Cisco launches Cisco Plus, a step toward networking as a service, I should say. And so networking as a service, NAS, that sounds fun and cool. And how does this get us closer to that, Don? Or does it?
Well, remember the days when you could go and buy a firewall or a router or a switch, and it was a piece of hardware, and you stuck it in your network, and that was it? You were done paying for it? Well, slowly over the last couple of years, we've seen services like Cisco Meraki come out where it's a managed service. So you've got to pay a subscription, but it's generally worth it because you get updates and a pretty sweet UI, and you're able to manage the devices. Well, Cisco is looking to extend that type of model out to all of their stuff with the new Cisco Plus subscription service. So your favorite hardware is going to turn into a monthly bill or annual bill.
So it's like a Disney Plus subscription, but now it's like Cisco Plus.
I was going to make that joke. You beat me to it. But it is, yeah. So your router and switch can be like Netflix now.
Do I get to have like a menu? And that's a nice looking switch. Let's try that.
You just spend hours looking through switches and don't end up using any of them?
That's got 48 ports. That's kind of nice.
So I can be a little cynical on this one, but I'm curious to hear Anthony's opinion because he's a little more positive on the Cisco side. Because there's got to be benefits, right, Anthony?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it really is interesting, right? Because they still are in the business of hardware. So I know the article kind of danced around the hardware aspects of it, but I mean, if we are buying hardware for our on-prem, certainly it's not going to be $9.95 a month, right, for our firepower device. So that's kind of an interesting aspect of it.
Is this them trying to like see the future coming, going, oh no, maybe we're going to eventually have to phase out of hardware sales and just be this subscription type service?
I think they're seeing how lucrative recurring revenue is, right?
Yeah.
So like with Meraki, they know they're getting money every month or every year. It's on the books. The analysts love it. The stock market loves it. So they're seeing that and trying to find out how to fit it in other places. Now, I am curious, and I couldn't find this out, so I don't know if you guys saw anything, if it's going to replace Cisco SmartNet. Because you had to pay for SmartNet anyway to get extended warranty. And if this is the same price, then, hey, you get your warranty and centralized management and stuff. That's worth it, in my opinion. But
do you need a warranty if you don't even have the hardware anymore?
Well, you have to have the hardware, right?
Oh, I thought the hardware was like in the cloud. I don't know how the internet works.
You gotta get there. It's like having an interstate but no road to get
so
you
you
to
still,
the interstate.
I thought you were saying this is like replacing the physical equipment in your closet and you're using it as a service in the.
So Cisco has been pretty active on this. They've released a lot of their stuff to run as software in AWS and Azure. So yeah, you can spin up ASA firewalls in Azure. I know Anthony, you got way more experience with that than I do. But you still need some physical hardware on-prem, and that I think is where the software as a service model is coming in. Because the stuff that's in AWS, they already make money on, or at least I think they do, right? When you deploy an ASA, you pay an hourly fee, and Cisco's pulling image money on that.
Yeah, what the most popular model that Cisco has done with the clouds so far, and I think that's about to change based on this article you pointed out to us, Don. They do a bring your own license, so you will spin up an instance in AWS for your firepower firewall, for example, and you're paying 17 cents an hour to AWS for the hardware. And then it's bring your own Cisco license. Now, what's great for our students, Don, is there's a evaluation for 90 days on the firepower. So that's the license that you're bringing. So you have 90 days of play with this firepower device all you like. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's for the 17 cents an hour.
That's the positive side right there. Because if you're studying at 17 cents an hour, you fire it up for an hour, you shut it down. And so that's a perfect model. But if you're a business where you need it 24/7, you have to start thinking like 17 cents an hour. That adds up after a while.
That's minimum wage in Florida, I think.
Yes, that's right.
That's what it is. So this came out of Cisco Live. Was there any other cool announcements or things? I know it's still going on now at the time we're filming this, but is there anything you've seen, Anthony, coming out of Cisco Live?
I'm just really excited about Train. I can't wait to hear Drops of Jupiter.
In my ear, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
Been a while since I've heard that song. Don, the joke.
He said
it's a band.
Jason said Train is performing. He said the Killers are Train.
I don't know
Cisco
who
Live.
Train is. So
they are a band. They play music.
When he said that, when he said Train,
when
he said Train, I thought, oh, is he attending a course?
So I don't know any Train songs.
You don't know that one song?
No, I don't.
Train.
I listen to Megadeth.
Can you reach your guitar, Anthony?
I can't believe he led with Train because,
I know,
would
and then he
expect
said
them
the
to be
Killers
playing.
too.
Yeah, exactly.
went
The
with
Killers
Train
are a little bit more current. Yeah.
Train's kind of like State Fair level, I think, at this point.
That's exactly right. Yep. The cocktail lounge in a Reno.
Yeah.
Bowling
alley.
Not even the casino.
We are Train.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I am drunk.
Don, what I couldn't wait to ask you is this question: has CompTIA received calls yet for Cisco Plus training?
That's a good point. Yeah, that may happen. If there's a Cisco Plus certification, I bet a lawsuit will come out of that one.
Yeah.
By the way, they're called Train because that's how they get to their gigs now. All right.
Like hobos in a boxcar.
Yeah. Our next concert is wherever this one's
going.
going.
They're not taking Amtrak and have a nice boot. No, they're like, jump on, Billy.
We kid. That one song is
That's how
fun.
Steven lost his foot.
All right. Our next article is from Gizmodo.com. You seriously need to update your iPhone right now. And I know my iPhone did an update the other day, which seemed kind of out of its normal sync. So I'm assuming that I'm good. But what happened? I'm assuming a 0 day here?
So normally you get a little message that says, hey, would you like to apply an update tonight? Or, hey, we're thinking about applying an update. When do you want to do it? And this time it just did it. And that's really the big red flag that lets you know something bad happened. And in this case, it was a WebKit vulnerability, which affects your web browser. So a pretty significant thing. Apple made an interesting choice with iOS in which they allowed other web browsers in the App Store, but only if they use Apple's WebKit renderer, which means no matter which web browser you're running, you're really running Safari. And so you might have a Chrome skin on top of it or Microsoft Edge skin on top, but underneath, it's all using Safari's WebKit engine. So when a vulnerability comes out, it affects all of them. And this one is a universal cross-site scripting vulnerability, which can wreak tons and tons of havoc. So Apple did rush out an update. They actually rushed out 2 updates. So the first one apparently took care of most of it, but there was another CVE and they had to push a second one. Most people won't notice that. They took both of them at the same time. But it seems pretty bad. Now, Daniel, this is kind of your field. So what do you think on the severity level on this one?
Severity level obviously was going to be pretty darn high. I'm going to go with pretty darn high as when Apple kind of like just says, we're not going to wait for people to go, okay, I'll take that. You need to do this now kind of activity that lets you know that this is kind of an important thing. And specifically and I was actually listening to, I think it was Edward Snowden was talking about this, and he was saying, well, Apple is this monoculture. They have a very specific way in which they deliver, right? You have very small amounts of differences between the devices. So when it affects one thing, it can affect a lot of things, especially when it comes to something like a web browser. So there's a bunch of lines of code in a web browser. Honestly, you're probably going to find something inside the web browser, which is exactly what they did. And you now have the nightmare scenario. I mean, there are companies out there in the world that are they specialize in doing this and selling access to people's iPhones, because iPhones are typically, run by people that are wealthy or successful or celebrity, because it's kind of a status symbol in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Speaking of which, do you have an iPhone, Daniel?
I do not have an iPhone.
Fact, case in point.
Yes. Case in point. Absolutely. There's a cell phone that's like $15,000. It's like super secure, and I think Tom Hardy has one.
Really?
Oh yeah, I saw a picture. I was like, oh yeah, that looks cool. I don't have 15 G's to drop on no dang phone though. I'll just use Signal or something, use some encrypted type of thing. But it does show you the difference between the different types of phone environments out there. You start looking in the Android world, there's a plethora of different devices, so it's harder in a sense to find something that's going to go across all those platforms. So that's why you start looking at the app specifically, something that can install on all those things and work in all those devices. Whereas if you hit an Apple one, you're like, cha-ching,
So
it's
this is the
payday.
jackpot.
Right, because you're now into the Apple ecosphere.
So for those that don't know Daniel's DEF CON levels, pretty darn high is the second to highest?
No, pretty darn high. It's like we're in full-scale nuclear
That's
war.
the worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst one. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're not yet on, 14.4.2, or for the watchOS 7.3.3, definitely.
Oh yeah, that was
take
the
a
other thing.
moment.
It affected the watch as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
Yeah, it's really bizarre.
And the iPad is iPad OS is the same version number as
And
the
this
other one.
wasn't a theoretical one either. This is one that they say may be actively being exploited in the wild. So that's another reason why this was such a rush.
All right. Well, I'm up to date.
Somebody in the comments says, no viruses on a Mac ever. Completely safe environment. Can't jailbreak an iPhone. I assume they meant to put sarcasm brackets around that.
More than likely.
Yeah, I would think so. Don, you got your new one, right? You got the Mini?
I have the Mini, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
You liking that?
I do, which apparently didn't sell very well, and they're discontinuing. So apparently I was the one person who bought one.
Yeah, because you were saying you were waiting for a smaller one.
I was, and I'm tempted to buy a second one just to have it, so that when this one dies, I get, because you know how it is. Like 2 years from now, I'll be pissed off because I can't buy one.
How will they make the battery continue to drain though on that one, even though it's sitting in a box? That's what I wanna know.
That's true.
Anthony, are you poor like Daniel, or do you have an iPhone?
I am, yes, on the latest iPhone, whatever it is, 12 Pro Max.
So we can all make fun of Daniel.
We're going to call him Anthony Bougie Sequeira.
And I think something has been hacked on it, because every time I open it, I'm on an OnlyFans page. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
David Hasselhoff's OnlyFans page.
I keep sending you those links I find.
No, he means he's actually on the page.
Yeah, he's live streaming.
Yeah, there's some weird people going, now do this.
Well, if you tip me enough, I guess I will.
He's like, the phone paid for itself.
Return on investment in like 2 hours, man.
I'm making money on this thing. Congratulations on that, Anthony.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll put the link to that nowhere. Our next article comes to us from the good people at arstechnica.com. OpenSSL fixes high-severity flaw that allows hackers to crash servers. Yes, that is high severity. I think on Daniel's scale, that is also a pretty darn high.
Yep, pretty darn high.
The widely used code library is also purged of a certificate verification bypass. So this is something that, Don, that this was in the field as well, and not just a potential problem.
It wasn't very widely in the field, though, so I think this one, it may have just been security researchers at this point, but similar to Heartbleed, this one was a vulnerability in OpenSSL that attackers could point at a server, but what made this one really interesting was they couldn't get at data. They couldn't decrypt data like Heartbleed. Heartbleed was way worse, but in this case, they could crash the server basically at will. And that leads this to be a prime denial of service candidate. So if you've got a target that's running OpenSSL, which pretty much everybody is, and you want to really mess with them, you just start throwing these packets at them and crashing their servers. And if they're auto-scaling, then they'll start spinning up new ones. You crash those too. You just keep throwing the data at it. Well, once the attack was detected, they were able to patch this pretty quick. So OpenSSL has pushed updates out for it. Also, most web application firewalls out there have been patched to be able to protect from this too, to filter it out before it gets to your servers. But it's a pretty creative one, and it's a full CVE, so it's out there. It just shows how important some of these libraries are that are being targeted by attackers, because they know that they're everywhere.
It's an interesting thing. I don't think the denial of service attack gets enough airplay or airtime, or maybe not we don't put the emphasis on it enough on how actually disruptive these things are. And it cost a lot of money to different organizations. And depending on the organization, it could really put you down pretty hard, maybe even out of business, depending on the length of the attack and the severity of it, and what actually went down. So, I mean, denial of service attacks are a really bad thing, and unfortunately, they can be pretty weird, but not too difficult to pull off. You throw enough data, or you throw something weird at it, it doesn't know how to handle it. This says that it was causing like a null pointer dereferenced type of issue. So it's just going, hey, here's some memory. Where's that memory? It's over there. What does that do? Nothing.
Well, didn't we
You're
talk
dead.
about? Haven't we talked about malware or botnets as a service too? Where I could, as someone that knows very little about actually how to pull off a hack, I could probably go find somewhere, be it on the dark web or in the darker corners of the regular web, where I could find a service to pull off a DDoS on my enemy if I wanted to bomb their email account or something like that.
It probably wouldn't be too difficult. There are organizations out there this is what they do. They say, hey, you need some denial of service action, I'll hook you up.
Let's try. Give me a target. Tell me who to go after.
So if you're worried about your servers, make sure you patch up to version 1.1.1K. K is the key there. I think we've been at 1.1.1 for quite some time now.
I think they also found a tertiary CVE with this as well, where there was the certificate verification bypass. As they were looking at this vulnerability, they discovered this one. We're like, oh no.
Is that the update they're talking about? The certification.
So,
which would defeats the whole purpose of SSL at that
point. All of a sudden, it's like SSL's for. Why use that?
1.1. That sounds like very early on. Is this?
Oh no, this has been around a long time.
How is it 1.1?
Well, this is TLS, which is the next iteration of what SSL was. So.
When we did when we featured Heartbleed, which was what, like 5 years ago, we were telling everybody to update to 1.1.1e. So
because they're doing the letter thing instead.
Yeah, and when it's a security library like this, they don't make changes just willy nilly. Like it's got to be something significant for them to upgrade it, and it's under a lot of scrutiny. So they progress slow.
Heartbleed was cool though. I mean, it's horrible, horrible for what it did, but like. Cool to watch it happen. I got to play with it a little bit, and it was like, oh, this is a bunch of data on the server. That was easy. That was fun. Please don't do this in the wild, because
it's cool for all the people that got to play with it.
Yeah,
not the people that
got played.
I just pulled up the statistics from a third party, and it looks like about 2.5 million websites using OpenSSL.
That's all?
Oh, that's it. Yeah. All right. This is a minor one.
Yeah.
That's a metric butt ton, right?
Yeah,
that's
metric butt ton is the technical term.
Is that more than people using iPhones?
Who knows?
Probably not.
Yeah. Close. All right. Our next article comes to us from thehackernews.com. A lot of hacking and stuff going on this week.
There was some bad stuff. This is the worst one.
This is the worst? Okay, we're going in reverse order. PHP's Git server hacked to insert secret backdoor to its code. And you said backdoor, so that's...
And I don't know if Anthony can find this. Anthony, can you find how many web servers are running PHP? Because it should be damn near all of them.
I like having Anthony here as like our research guy to just like come in with
bodies run PHP, don't they?
Yeah. So PHP, which is used by damn near every web server on the planet, is a language, and you can make web pages in it. Well, they run their own internal Git repo servers, and hackers managed to get in there. They compromised the credentials of somebody, they haven't said who, managed to get in and insert a backdoor into the Git repo where if anybody were to download the source code for PHP, you would have downloaded it with a backdoor in it. Now, most people don't do that, right? They wait for it to be packaged and they pull it that way. So had this gone undetected over a period of time, it could have reached a ton of systems, and then this whole show wouldn't have happened. But we'd all be printing out our resumes.
We're sending out tapes of Technado now for people.
But they did catch it. Several of the project leads noticed some commits that happened in their Git repo that they couldn't account for, and that kind of revealed the fact that this compromise had happened. Since then, they have moved all of their code base into GitHub, and what they said was, while running our own Git repo was kind of in line with the open source ideal, it was an unnecessary security risk because GitHub is free. Why not just pop it over there and be done? And now we get, global level security. So they have corrected it, but it does show like that's a pretty big deal when you can get a backdoor in PHP. It's so heavily used that this is big.
Oh yeah, it's a big deal. And I always enjoy when they kind of give you some of the specifics on how they're portraying the attack itself, where they were saying that. So first off, when they put the commit in, they said fix typo, right? Fix typo was the reasoning for updating the software. So trying to slide by there was something very innocuous sounding, right? Oh yeah, we're going to fix a typo. And then the way it works is that when a browser connects to the service that's running the PHP, it looks at that HTTP header for your user agent for the browser itself. If that browser starts with a specific string, which is specifically Zerodium, a zero-day exploit broker known for acquiring high impact and high risk vulnerabilities, then they can just tell it, hey, do anything I want. And it's going to look at that string. It's going to fire it off and do whatever they want. So really interesting as far as how this is being done. Obviously pretty devastating for them that their Git repository was completely owned. And now they're having to do some incident response on this.
Now, Daniel, I did see a little note like where they had put in there, remove this, sold to Zerodium mid-2017. So does that mean this has been around that long? Or is that...
I don't know if it's been around that long. That would be crazy.
Because I was under the impression this was a very recent thing.
Yeah, so was I. But if it's been... Maybe that's how long Zerodium's been around. And they're just like, hey, baller from 2017.
But that's nice. That's nice of the hackers to comment out their code as well, so you can...
Yeah, it's good of them to let us know.
Appreciate that. All right, cool. So basically our phones don't work, no web pages work, and what was the other one? OpenSSL doesn't work. So
I don't know if you knew this, Peter, but the internet is dangerous.
Yeah, we're going back to the dark ages this week. Fantastic. Well, when these things happen, there are consequences for these actions. Last week we saw Last week we saw the guy who tried to extort someone at Tesla. He got thrown in jail, and this week we have another one. So let's take a look at our segment Behind Bars.
Break the law, and you'll go to jail.
Sometimes.
Yeah, periodically. This one comes to us from zdnet.com, and I remember talking about this story a little bit ago. An IT admin with an axe to grind sent to prison for wiping Microsoft user accounts. The victim company's operations ground to a halt following the attack. And this is one where it's pretty easy to quantify an actual number on losses, because you can say this is how much we generate in a day, and this company was just out of commission for this time when they, let's see, what was it? An IT consultancy firm in 2018. So, man, the slow wheels of justice here yet again. But this guy, a 32-year-old, infiltrated the servers after the fact, and he was. He returned back to India after he was let go, right?
That's why this took so long. So, basically it was a company that had 1,500 user accounts in Office 365. They had paid an IT consultancy to come in and help migrate their user accounts into Office 365. And I guess they had this one IT admin who they got some customer complaints about, and so they fired him. Well, he got fired, and he stayed in the U.S. for like a month and then went back to India where he was from. And about 2 months more go by. So 3 months after his termination, he connected in using some kind of credentials he had parked to be able to get into the Office 365 account and proceeded to delete 1,200 out of the 1,500 accounts in the system, completely eliminating email and file storage and Teams chat for this organization. I mean, basically shut it down. And
300 people giving him Snickers bars
every
day.
That's what I was wondering. Is it something like
them?
Like those were his friends, or is it easier? It's like 1,200 the max you can do in one move, or something?
Or maybe the 300 all had admin rights.
Okay.
Because he wasn't doing a good job, right?
No, obviously, yeah.
So anyhow, he was in India, which is it's difficult to extradite someone from India. But he happened to make a visit to the United States. He came back here to I forget what they said he was doing.
We
It
call
was a
that
wedding or
stupid.
something, wasn't it?
Yeah. So he came back to the U.S. not knowing that there was an arrest warrant out for him, and so he was arrested when he landed. And so now he is being sentenced to a couple of years in jail and a $250,000 fine. I did think it was interesting that they've assessed him for $560,000 in damages, and they say that's what it cost this company to recover. And I'm thinking, in Office 365, you can just undelete user
well, hold on.
accounts and
Didn't we
mailboxes.
talk about oh no, last week or a couple weeks ago we talked about the university in New Zealand where they wiped user accounts, but
the
that was different. That
profiles,
was
yeah.
not the Office 365 accounts, which you
Correct.
could roll back.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. So in this case, these were things that were up on the server. So unless he did like one of those ultimate deletes where you do not recover, or the user accounts came back with incorrect SIDs and you got to remap, I just don't see why that would cost $560,000. But maybe since they knew it was going to be assessed to him, they just paid contractors the most they wanted.
Yeah, it could just be the time it took to get
Did
things
they
rolling
mention
again.
how he did this? Like, so he was working there.
Mm-hmm.
He was performing poorly. He was let go. A couple months later, he decides to log in and wipe out some accounts. Does he still have credentials to this? I mean, that's poor security right
So
there.
not this article, but one of the other ones had indicated he had another user's credentials and was able to leverage that to be able to get in and do this, and then just a PowerShell script away from wiping out those accounts.
Yeah, and that other article, the one on Bleeping Computer that I'd found too, it said it took them 3 months to totally get things resolved. So that's why the costs hit as high as they did. It said that he has a brother working as an engineer in New York, and he applied for a visa that was approved back in December 2019 to come and visit him, and that's why he came back. But it makes me wonder. I think I'm going to start like a service where people can check to see, hey, do I have any outstanding warrants before I'm
coming back into the
back
U.S.
to the country? I don't know if that's something I can.
All right, look,
kick
I'm
off.
gonna throw an open question here.
Go ahead.
You've deleted 1,200 Office 365 accounts. The punishment can be 2 years in jail, or the admins get to come and give you a severe ass whipping. Which one are you taking?
Wait, all 1,200 people?
No,
Just
the
the
admins.
admins.
Just the
It's
admins.
like a couple of them, they get to draw straws or whatever. Who gets to throw the
So
first
here's
punch.
what I'd say. Based on most admins I've seen, I'm taking the ass whooping. But there's guys like you, Daniel, that like if you're involved,
I show up, I'm like, I'm ready to do
yeah, I'm
this.
like, I changed my mind and
No takes backs.
prison, please. I will go to prison.
Yeah.
Well, I can't speak from firsthand experience, but I hear it's not very pleasant in prison. So
It's true. That's like one day of severe tail beating.
Even if this was the printer scene from Office Space
Right.
with
I'm
the
willing-
bat,
I'm willing to go
taking
down.
that
Yeah.
over.
Hey, Anthony, your
years of
choice.
If the prison is using Office 365, I wonder if they'll ask this guy for advice.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those situations where he's not allowed to touch a computer for a little bit. I'm thinking.
So it'll be like Shawshank Redemption, right? Instead of helping with the taxes, he'll,
Right. He's IT support.
Oh God! How long before there's a horrible reboot of Shawshank where he's like, "Hey, I got you all set up on Office 365, Warden."
Yeah. They kick the crap out of some horrible rape group.
We told you we want to create the accounts, not delete them. Why do you keep deleting the accounts?
Bad.
You know, that's a good point. Maybe it was a mistake.
Yeah.
Maybe he was trying to do some volunteer work. he was remoting
he's
in.
helping out. He just who hasn't done that, right?
Why? I don't know why Microsoft puts that delete button right next to the add button.
You get a little Jiminy, click it. Next thing you know, there's 1,200 accounts are gone.
It is so confusing.
Who hasn't done that, right?
Right.
Yeah, raise your hand.
Come on.
All right.
Coming down on this guy.
Got a couple things coming up that I want to let you know about. The first is we have a webinar that Don will be doing. That is what Linux distro is right for you. Linux in the workplace versus Linux at home, to kind of help you, go through that process and figuring out, based on the hundreds and hundreds that are out there, what would fit based on your needs. So we're going to look at that on Thursday, April 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You can head over to itpro.tv/webinars and register for that one. And you can see all the past webinars as well, like the one that Daniel just did on the top 5 CTFs to learn cybersecurity, which was a fantastic one, you and John Hammond.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that is archived and up there now as well, so you can see those CTFs and try those out for yourself. But Don, any hints? Any Linux distros that we're not expecting you're going to be pushing?
My favorite one is Windows 95.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Poop OS. Yeah. Oh, it's Pop OS.
Yeah,
That's
Pop
it.
OS.
Windows is open source now, right? Because of that.
See, I'm all
I
sorts
didn't
of
even
good
think
ideas.
I forgot
right
about
here.
that one. That's
Yeah.
like my least favorite, but it'd be a good one.
What was the Windows version that was like kind of accidentally put out open source because somebody found?
Oh,
the
that was
source code?
XP, wasn't it?
Was XP?
Yeah, I think it was.
We
XP.
did that article a little bit ago. You don't pay
Or
attention.
the source code to Windows XP or something.
Yeah, somebody posted. The
Oh
source
yeah,
code.
there were a couple versions wrapped up in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that does not count as a Linux version. So
No,
we'll
it
have to
does
tune
not.
in and see what fits there.
Windows 95.
Yeah, that's my
Nice.
favorite Linux. And also head over to go.itpro.tv/Technado, and you can get a coupon code for 30% off the lifetime of your personal plan. You can also request a team trial and see all the cool features available for teams, like the Pro Portal. That is all at go.itpro.tv/Technado. And of course, as I mentioned before, head to go.itpro.tv/Shart and get that sign for your office to let people know how long it's been since your last embarrassing Shart incident. I know that Anthony's already printing that out at his office right now. I can't believe it's not on the wall behind you already, Anthony. But how long's it been for you?
I've taken a rare drug that improves your rectal sampling, so it's been a long time
good to
since
know.
I've sharded.
I don't know what that has to do with hacking, but I will say that ever since I've stopped drinking as much coffee, I think it's allowed me to focus on
Many
my work.
less shard events.
Yeah, because I think I'm just more focused. I was so jittery before.
He was just like, oh, no,
Yeah.
no I think it was a false alarm. No, it's not.
Yeah, there it is again. That's the nice thing about working from home, though. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Is
you just use the dog to clean up with.
You can work right through it. You know, you can just work right through it. All right, Anthony,
this
thank
dog
you.
smells horrible.
Thank you for taking the
I
time
have
and
not
joining us
laughed
today.
this hard in a long time. Thanks so much for letting me join.
Yeah, we're happy to have you, and anytime in the future. And Daniel, Don, thank you as well. And thank you, Jason, from earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And check out all the cool projects he's involved in. And check us out next week, because we'll see you then on Technado with Don Pizzette.